from a piece of paper. I have the privilege of speaking from my heart what I really think. Please remember, my people in Poland and your people in Ukraine, our friends in Europe, we can build the future on truth, mutual respect, and understanding of history. The solidarity that was born in Gdansk can be our reality if we open our hearts and mind for the future, but primarily for the future. I deeply believe in what I felt as a young man when I went to the Gdansk shipyard when Solidarity was created. It was a very long time ago. I was looking at thousands of people in the shipyard and around it who were bravely opposed communism. And I thought to myself back then that there are more people of goodwill. I deeply believe it. I will do my best. And but I call on you to help us in Poland, in Ukraine, and in the world, that people of goodwill find each other, be together. If we are together, we will defeat all evil. And I wish you all we wish you good conversations in business. I wish you happiness to all of you, and I wish everybody true solidarity. Thank you. I will now ask Yulia Svirdenko, Prime Minister of Ukraine, to take the floor.
Panie premierze, drodzy Donaldzie, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, partners, thank you for this meeting in Poland. The meeting in Gdansk, you're absolutely right, it's city of Solidarność, city of solidarity. Courage to fight required solidarity among people, among society, among nations, and I'm really grateful for everyone who stands with Ukraine and who solidarity with us. Thank you for your personal and practical support, for your visits to Kyiv, to Zaporizhia, to Odessa, to Dnipro, for being with us. You see with your eyes how we fight, you see how we suffer, and you see how resilient we are with your support. Thank you. And most of all, standing here, I want to say thank you to people of Poland. Dear Poles, thank you for your help when it was the most urgent time to support us. Thanks for helping us.
How will we unlock economic and social prosperity through environmental responsibility? With EY's full spectrum of services across sectors, we're all in to shape the future with confidence.
Prime Minister, thank you for choosing your native city, Gdansk, for hosting this conference. Thank you for your leadership. Dziękuję bardzo. This is the 5th conference for reconstruction and recovery. Unfortunately, this is the 5th year of large-scale invasion, of war. This is the 5th year of our losses, but it's also 5th year of our strengths. Unfortunately, we still face an enormous price for freedom, for Europeans' freedom and values. Russia is weaker, but more aggressive against the whole Europe. In Ukraine, we have a national tradition, it's called Toloka, when people gather together and we start repairing home when it's damaged. So this is how we approach to reconstruction and to recovery. All together, we do millions of steps, we take in millions of actions, projects that help us to survive, to adopt, and to develop ourselves. Over the next 2 days of this conference, we expect more than 160 agreements that should be signed for more than 10 billion euros. And they are aimed at aggregating resources and capability across 5 main dimensions: European Union integration, human capital, business, also local and regional development. And for the first time during this year in Gdansk, we are holding and having dimension that focus on defense. Dear friends, the challenges facing our continent is existential. Our military heroic often say, you should change or die. It's exactly what Ukraine has learned in the face of full-scale war. We're forced to innovate to survive, and this has become our superpower. So Ukraine empowers European defense, Ukraine empowers energy resilience, Ukraine empowers investment and recovery. But Ukraine is empowered by people, by Ukrainians and by all of you who stands with us, creating conditions for business to develop, for Ukrainians to return back, for creating workplaces, for economic to growth. And of course, Ukraine is empowered by European future, by our membership in European Union. Last week was marked with a historical milestone for us. The first negotiation cluster was opened, and I want to thank you to everyone in this room who personally contributed to make it happen. Thank you so much. Yes. I also want to say thank you to European partners for the critically important 90 billion financial support instrument for Ukraine. And we have a great news. The first disbursement of 3.2 billion euro will be announced today. Applause. And this disbursement will help us to strengthen our defense, will help us to maintain the macroeconomic stability within the country and to build our energy system ahead the new heating season. We stand, we keep up, and we are here to share what we have learned in this fight to build a stronger and safer Europe together. Partner with Ukraine, shape the future. Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you so much.
And now please join me in welcoming to the floor EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
Prime Minister Tusk, dear Donald, Prime Minister Sviridenko, dear Julia, President Costa di Antonio, fellow leaders, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank you, dear Donald, for hosting us in this wonderful city of Gdansk, which is indeed your city, the city of freedom, and yes, the city of solidarity. Since the very start of Russia's war of aggression, Gdansk has always lived up to its reputation. The entire city has mobilized in defense of freedom and in support for Ukraine. 5,000 families hosted Ukrainians in their homes. Schools started teaching in Ukrainian, and the local on the front line. Our history. It is part of your character. So on behalf of, I want to thank you for freedom could prevail over oppression. And they helped open the path to Poland's European future. Today, the people of Ukraine are doing the same. The courage of Europe Russia's. Ukraine now produces seeds Russian production capacity. And the determination of the Ukrainian people has shown to the world that their European choice cannot be broken. Ask to turn that choice into a reality. Earlier this month, indeed, we opened the first cluster of negotiations with Ukraine, and this was a historic moment. A recognition of the remarkable progress Ukraine has made already, and a strong signal that Ukraine's future belongs in our European family. And yes, enlargement is more than a process. It is an anchor for Ukraine's future. The first cluster focuses on the fundamentals of our union: the rule of law, strong democratic institutions, effective public administration, the foundations on which lasting prosperity is built. It provides a clear roadmap for the reforms ahead, and it gives confidence to citizens, to businesses, but also to investors. And as always, accession will remain merit-based without any question. But if Ukraine continues to reform with the determination it has shown in the recent years, its place in the European family is becoming a reality. And Ukraine's European future is already taking shape today. Ukraine joined our Rome Like at Home scheme earlier this year. Ukraine is moving forward.
They said I was too young. I said, watch me. Before sunrise cycles, relentless.
Not only in an economy of around 200 billion euro, but in a future member of a single market worth 20 trillion euros, a market 100 times larger, and a market built on the rule of law, legal certainty, and the protection of property rights. And this is why Ukraine's European path is such a powerful proposition. And this is why now is the time to invest in Ukraine. And that leads me to my next point. The prosperous Ukraine of tomorrow requires massive investments today. Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion, the European Union and its member states have provided 200 billion euros in economic, financial, and military support. And with the Ukraine support loan, we will provide a further 90 billion euros over the next 2 years. And indeed, today we are transferring the first tranche under this loan, dear Julia, more than 3.2 billion euros in macro-financial assistance. So you're right, I'm happy and proud to announce this disbursement today. And we will start paying the first money of the 6 billion euro for drone production in the coming days. This indeed is solidarity in action. It shows Europe's support for Ukraine is here to stay. And at the same time, we continue to call on all our partners to maintain their support, because a strong and independent Ukraine is in all our interests. Our ambition is not only to help Ukraine endure, it is to help Ukraine grow and prosper as a free and European country. And that is why the European Union has become the largest provider of investment and risk-sharing support in Ukraine. We're helping cities and towns to rebuild. We're supporting the resilience of the energy sector. We are providing financing to businesses, including in the frontline regions. Now we are taking the next step. At last year's Recovery Conference in Rome, we announced the creation of a European flagship fund, the largest equity fund dedicated to the reconstruction of Ukraine. Today, I can say that fund is ready to go. It will invest in some of the most strategic sectors of Ukraine's future, from clean energy to infrastructure to the high growth companies that will drive Ukraine's economy in the decades ahead. The fund is backed by the European Union, Poland, France, Germany, and Italy. It can mobilize up to €500 million still this year, with the aim of reaching €1 billion over time. So public capital will take the first share of the risk. And this creates the confidence needed to attract private investment of scale. And the message is simple that we're sending to investors. When you invest in Ukraine, you're not only investing in Ukraine's future, but you are investing in Europe's future. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine's recovery and growth are not only in Ukraine's interest, they are in Europe's interest too. This war has shown how fundamental Ukraine's security is to Europe, not only as a recipient, but as a security provider. Ukraine's battlefield experience is unmatched. Its defense companies are some of the most innovative in the world. They are developing and producing cutting-edge capabilities, from interceptor drones to jamming systems. These technologies protect Ukrainian lives every day, and they are increasingly important for Europe's own security and resilience. And that is why deeper integration of our defense industry is so important. We are already seeing what this partnership can achieve. Ukrainian-designed drones being produced in Germany. Fuel for Ukraine's Flamingo missiles will soon be made in Denmark. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, we need Ukrainian ingenuity and innovation and Europe's scale and industrial know-how. That is the mixture that we need to prosper. So, ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, when we gathered for the last recovery conference, the situation in Ukraine was dark. Today, the outlook is different. Ukraine has made progress on the battlefield. We have strengthened Ukraine's economic foundations. We have advanced its European path. And we have created new opportunities for investment and growth. Ukraine's courage has made this possible. And our solidarity has helped make it a reality. The lesson of Gdansk remains as relevant today as it was 4 decades ago. Solidarity is the road to freedom. And in that spirit, thank you, Gdansk and Poland, for your solidarity. Thank you, Europe, for your solidarity. And thank you, Ukraine, for your courage. Slava Ukraini. Long live Europe.
Dziękujemy. Prosimy teraz.
Thank you very much indeed. And the floor goes to European Council President Antonio Costa.
Dear Prime Minister Tusk, dear Prime Minister Svyridenko, dear Donald and Yulia, dear Ursula, dear Head of State and Government, Excellencies, distinguished guests. It's a pleasure to be here in Gdansk on behalf of the 27 member states of the European Union. Gdansk is the birthplace of the solidarity movement and the lasting symbol of courage, resilience, and the struggle for freedom against Soviet imperialism. In the 80s, many doubt that totalitarianism could be defeated. Yet, countless Poles refused to surrender their hopes for freedom and democracy. Among them was Prime Minister Donald Tusk, a freedom fighter for a democratic, prosperous, and European Poland. Thank you, Donald. In 2022, many people also doubted that Ukraine, its resilience, its courage, and its unity. 4 years later, Ukraine continues to resist and fight for a sovereign, democratic, free, and European future. Despite the brutality of Russia's ongoing attacks on critical and civilian infrastructures, it has failed to achieve its objectives in Ukraine, nor has it succeeded in dividing the European Union or preventing us from supporting Ukraine. From day one, the European Union has stood and will continue to stand firmly with Ukraine. The European Union is its largest donor, providing over 200 billion in support since 2022. And to bolster Ukraine's resilience, we have recently established the Ukraine Support Loan with further 90 billion euros. This will address urgent needs, including military needs. And as President von der Leyen already mentioned earlier, the first payment from the support loan to Ukraine was made today. It shows our support is consistent and unbreakable to help Ukraine achieving a just and lasting peace. Ukraine has shown readiness for an immediate ceasefire and for sustained diplomatic efforts toward a just and lasting peace. The European Union supports all initiatives that contribute to peace while increasing pressure on Russia through sanctions. We have adopted 20 packages and we are preparing the next one. We have made a political decision to roll over sanctions by 1 year instead of just 6 months. These measures are working and aim to bring Russia to genuine negotiations. The European Union is ready to contribute to that process. Yet, it is Ukraine that will define the terms of a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace. No one can talk. Reconstruction is not only about repairing destruction, it is about building back a better Ukraine. We are laying the foundations for a modern, green, and digital economy that will strengthen the entire European continent. Ukraine's recovery process goes hand in hand with its path to the European Union accession. For millions of Ukrainians, the future is defined by our shared destiny. This means aligning legal, economic, and institutional frameworks with European standards. I reaffirm the commitment made by European Union leaders 4.5 years ago. Ukraine's future is in the European Union. As a first important step, accession negotiations opened formally last week, and we aim to open all remaining clusters as soon as possible. The process remains of course, merit-based, but Ukraine has already achieved remarkable reforms under extraordinary circumstances. We will continue working together to sustain this progress. We know that is at stake and what this means to the Ukrainian people. Ladies and gentlemen, true reconstruction is about people. It means creating quality jobs, restoring high-quality education, and ensuring the vulnerable groups, veterans, and trauma survivors are fully included in society. Guided by human rights, no community should be left behind. Ukraine's reconstruction is a major contribution to lasting peace in Europe. It shows that freedom and democracy can prevail over autocracy. Let us remain united in this effort. Together, we can help Ukraine rise stronger, freer within the European Union and more prosperous than ever. And help Ukraine, that means that Ukraine will help Europe to be better and stronger. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy.
Thank you. I will now ask Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, to take the floor.
Dear Prime Minister, dear Donald, dear Prime Minister Svyridenko from Ukraine, Presidents, Prime Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of Ukraine, military and civilian support for Ukraine remains fundamentally important. From Lugano to London, to Berlin, Rome, and now and today in Gdansk, the Ukraine Recovery Conference has become the major international gathering on recovery for Ukraine. That is why I'm pleased to be here with you today as a sign of our unwavering commitment. And ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, there is another dimension which makes this year's conference special for a German chancellor in specific. Donald, you reminded us, more than 87 years ago, this place, not far from here, a few minutes, the World War II began. 35 years ago, Germany and Poland signed their Treaty of Good Neighborship. This anniversary is a landmark of German-Polish relations. Dear Donald, for 35 years, Poles and Germans have proved even after the outrageous crimes Germans committed in Poland and to the Polish people between 1939 and 1945. Peace, good neighborhood, and friendship are possible. I'm deeply grateful to the Polish people for this. And today, the big picture is the following. As Europeans, we stand shoulder to shoulder, not just to defend security or defend prosperity on our continent. We are standing shoulder to shoulder to defend freedom on our continent. And that is why we are standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. And dear friends and colleagues, in these days, we are seeing a new dynamic. The G7 summit, the European Council last week, and the E5 meeting in Berlin yesterday have sent strong signals of European and transatlantic unity and support for Ukraine. Ukraine and its brave people will prevail as a strong and sovereign nation and as a future member of the European family. But at the beginning of this year, during one of the coldest winters in a long time, the Ukrainian energy sector faced particular pressure as Russia relentlessly attacked heating and power plants. To counter this, we intensified our efforts, including significant additional contributions to the Ukraine Energy Support Fund and the provision of combined heat and power units. I'm saying this because we must now prepare Ukraine for next winter. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, allow me to highlight 4 areas where we are making tangible progress together and where Europe is delivering for Ukraine. First, security. Security is the foundation of everything. Reconstruction, investment, and sustainable development are only possible in the long term with security. I would like to commend Poland for giving security and defense a prominent place at this year's conference here in Gdansk. And that is why our military support to Ukraine remains strong. We are constantly delivering, for example, modern air.
Make it count. With GoDaddy Email, you get a professional address that matches your domain. It builds trust, boosts credibility, and helps grow your brand. Setup is quick, and your inbox is protected with built-in security. And if you ever need help, we are just a call away. Start building your brand, one email at a time.
Security is so to strengthen Europe's security, my dear friends. Second, investment. In Rome, and Ursula mentioned that, we announced the idea of a European flagship fund for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Today, here in Gdansk, we are delivering on what we promised. The fund brings together Germany, Poland, Italy, and France. We want to mobilize substantial private investment in strategic sectors of Ukraine's economy: infrastructure, energy, industry, logistics. The reason behind that is quite simple. Public funding alone will never be enough to rebuild a country that has suffered such massive destruction. With an initial public package of up to 220 million euros, we are creating the confidence and the risk-sharing mechanism that private investors need to engage now. By investing now and committing long-term capital, Europe is sending a clear message. We believe in Ukraine's future within the European family. Third, reforms. Investments are crucial for recovery and they require confidence. And confidence depends on strong institutions. That is why the reforms undertaken in the context of Ukraine's EU accession process are so important. Continued progress in the fight against corruption and in strengthening the rule of law is essential for maintaining the trust of citizens, international partners, and investors alike. The strong German business presence at the URC 2026 here shows that Germany and its private sector are ready to contribute to recovery and prosperity. Fourth and last, people. 2 years ago, the conference in Berlin, we created the Skills Alliance for Ukraine, a unique multi-stakeholder platform dedicated to training Ukrainians. Since then, the alliance has mobilized an impressive 1.2 million euros for 1.2 billion euros for current and upcoming vocational training initiatives. This initiative reflects our conviction that reconstruction is not only about rebuilding what was destroyed, but also about investing in the people who will shape Ukraine's future. Now, ladies and gentlemen, security, investment, reforms, people. These are the building blocks for Ukraine's recovery. Together with our partners, we stand ready to support Ukraine in all 4 areas. And today's meeting in Gdansk marks a moment of hope. Ukraine is in a new position of strength. It is beginning to dawn on Moscow. Russia will not win this war. And ladies and gentlemen, Europe's support to Kiev is unwavering. We are determined to increase pressure on Russia's already strained economy. Since Evian, the G7, there is a new sense of transatlantic unity. And today, we are conveying a clear message to Russia. Time has come to enter into negotiations, to freeze the front line and to end the killing. Thanks to the Polish government again, and to you in person, Donald, and to all the people here in this room for hosting this important conference. And thanks to all of you for standing united with Ukraine. Many thanks.
Dziękujemy.
Thank you very much. Now I will give the floor to Gitanas Nausėda, President of the Republic of Lithuania.
Dear Prime Minister of Poland, dear Donald, dear President of the European Commission, dear Ursula, Prime Minister of Ukraine, dear President of the European Council, Excellencies, colleagues, friends of Ukraine. We meet at a decisive moment. Ukraine is defending not only its territory, but also the future of Europe, our freedom, our security, and the rules-based international order. That is why our messages must be clear. First, Ukraine belongs in the European Union. We welcome the opening of the first negotiation cluster, Fundamentals, with Ukraine. This is an important political message. We have been waiting 1 year for this moment, and now it is the right time to prove that we stand by our real political commitments. Lithuania supports the opening of all remaining negotiating clusters as soon as possible, preferably in July at the latest, and setting the target accession date. Why it could not be the January 1st of 2030? Is it ambitious? Of course, it is. Is it mission impossible? No, it is mission possible. It depends not only on the ability of Ukraine to implement reforms, but it depends on the willingness and commitment of European Union to make Europe stronger, more resilient, and more united. We call on all the fellow EU colleagues to support this and help Ukraine meet the technical requirements, they implement the necessary reforms, and align with the EU acquis. The Ukraine to European Union program implemented in the Team Europe spirit is the most efficient way to support Ukraine in this process. Second, on security. Lithuania has committed to allocating at least 0.25% of its GDP to military and security assistance for Ukraine over the 10-year period. We are not only meeting this commitment, but also consistently exceeding it by providing even greater financial support than initially pledged. We invite all partners to join this benchmark. Ukraine needs predictability, scale, and speed. The cost of hesitation is far higher than the cost of support. Third, on reconstruction. It cannot wait for the war to end. Recovery is already underway. Schools are reopening after reconstruction with shelters installed. Energy systems are being repaired. Municipalities are carrying out the projects and businesses are adapting and investing. Our task is to help Ukraine to do more, faster, and at scale. Lithuania is already delivering. We are building and rebuilding schools and civil protection shelters, installing solar power plants, supporting rehabilitation and demining, and strengthening institutions at both national and local levels. Ladies and gentlemen, today Lithuania is bringing a new commitment, almost 10 million euros of additional support on top of our previous support we delivered. We are launching a business partnership program to connect Lithuanian and Ukrainian companies, support investment, innovation, and practical reconstruction solutions in Ukraine. We are launching a municipal partnerships program to strengthen cooperation between Lithuanian and Ukrainian municipalities. The program will support practical peer learning and help build the capacity of Ukrainian municipalities in EU funding and project management. We continue to project of solar power plants with storage for Ukrainian schools and hospitals, because energy resilience means keeping essential services running. And through the Create Ukraine program, we are opening a new call for applications to attract young Ukrainian professionals eager to contribute their skills and experience to Ukraine's recovery and Europe's future. Colleagues, Ukraine's recovery is Europe's opportunity to prove that democracy rebuilds stronger than aggression destroys. Lithuania will continue to act. We invite all partners to do the same, support Ukraine's defense, invest in its recovery, and help bring Ukraine into European Union. Because Ukraine's victory, recovery, and accession defined the credibility and future of Europe. Thank you.
Dziękujemy.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Denis Bečirović, the president of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Esteemed Prime Minister Tusk, esteemed Prime Minister Sviridенко, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered today in Poland and more just European continent in the aftermath of destruction. Bosnia and Herzegovina was the victim of brutal aggression from 1992 to 1995 and is the only country in Europe where genocide was committed after the Second World War against Bosniaks. As a country that survived aggression and genocide, we fully understand the suffering and hardship endured by the citizens of Ukraine. Today, more than ever, it is necessary to support Ukraine in its just struggle for freedom. The competent institutions of Bosnia and Herzegovina condemned the Russian aggression against Ukraine as an act that violates international law. Following the Russian aggression, Bosnia and Herzegovina aligned itself with the positions of the European Union, which firmly support Ukraine. In addition to our continuous and principled support for Ukraine's just struggle, Bosnia and Herzegovina can also offer assistance in the recovery of this country. In this regard, we are ready to share our knowledge and experience with Ukraine through training of demining teams and experts, planning and management of demining operations, the application of modern technologies, including drones, digital mapping and long-range surveillance, public education programs on the risks posed by mines, and the development of prioritization and risk assessment system. We are also ready to share our experience in the recovery and reconstruction process of Ukraine in the following areas: reconstruction and rebuilding, the process of return of expelled and displaced persons to their pre-war homes, the prosecution of war criminals, the identification of missing persons, support to veterans, particularly in the area of the legislation and psychosocial support, and the development of rehabilitation and social integration programs. One of the important lessons we have learned is that psychological recovery must begin immediately. Children growing up in wartime conditions, displaced families, survivors of violence, and soldiers returning from conflict live with the consequences of war. The recovery of Ukraine will require enormous financial resources and strong international support. Our experience shows that the trust of citizens and international partners is strengthened through transparent public procurement procedures, strong oversight mechanisms, and the involvement of local communities in decision-making processes. Ladies and gentlemen, we can also help Ukraine, but not allowing new crises and new fronts to be opened in Europe. Any opening of new crises in the Western Balkans weakens Ukraine, weakens Europe, and threatens the values for which we are fighting together. We must not underestimate Russia's ability to destabilize the Western Balkans through its proxies. Therefore, I call upon the free world to provide even stronger support to Ukraine, while at the same time preventing the destabilization of the Western Balkans. Bosnia and Herzegovina will always stand with those who fight for justice, peace, and human dignity. The recovery of Ukraine is not merely the reconstruction of infrastructure and the economy. It is the restoration of the trust in the international order and in the values of democracy. Thank you for your attention.
Dziękujemy. Szanowni
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, and now the floor goes to Edi Rama, Prime Minister of Albania.
I'm sure that the best contribution you are expecting from me is a short speech, and I will deliver. So the notion of this gathering, I believe, is very simple. If reconstruction waits for the last shot to be fired, it will be already too late. And that is why we are here today. Meanwhile, Ukraine is already rebuilding while defending itself. This is a great meaning of this conference, and Albania is here with a very simple conviction.
Hi there, I am Kara, your intelligent co-passenger.
About completing Europe, strengthening resilience, and reducing strategic vulnerabilities. Of course, reconstruction is not charity, it is strategy. It is not only about repairing what has been destroyed, it's about building a Ukraine that is democratic, European, modern, and resilient, and showing that the whole Europe is capable to do so. So, in conclusion of my quick speech that I'm sure you appreciate, Ukraine is rebuilding Europe's courage. Europe must help rebuild Ukraine's future. Thank you so much.
Dziękujemy.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor goes to Roman Radev, Prime Minister of Bulgaria.
Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks ago, on the 11th of June, the war in Ukraine surpassed as a duration the first truly global conflict, World War I. This war of attrition, annihilation, and devastation must end. And in my opinion, this conference is a strong call for peace. Why? Because peace is the precondition for every recovery and reconstruction process. And I believe that we need to unite our efforts to bring just and sustainable peace according to international law and UN Charter. As well, we need to bring together our political will, that's why the leaders are here, our expertise, the business experts are here, and commitment to the recovery of Ukraine. Because this recovery is the fundamental of the future European security architecture and competitiveness. How can my country, Bulgaria, contribute to this process? It is very simple. Our contribution spreads over the 3 main pillars of the recovery process: reliable energy, fast lines of transport communications, and maritime security in the Black Sea. Talking about delivering secure energy diversification energy routes, Bulgaria has been already in this game, playing a pivotal role based on our strategic geographical location. We have been working on expanding the vertical gas corridor from south to north and connecting the gas transmission networks of Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, Moldova, and Ukraine. Very important. Enlarging our capacity. Not to forget, we have a free access to the 5 Turkish LNG terminals with the total capacity of 30 BCM and the old Trans-Balkan gas pipeline, so we can deliver in a reverse mode more than 80 BCM per year gas from the Mediterranean LNG terminals north to Moldova and Ukraine. Talking about transport, we have been working intensively on corridor number 8, connecting Adriatic to the Black Sea. Also, sea to sea, multimodal transport corridor, both railway and road, from Greece through Bulgaria to Romania, Constanța, and north to Odessa. And there are other options. There is a growing interest for rail connectivity from the Gulf countries based on the risk in Hormuz Strait through Syria, Turkey, Bulgaria, and again, north to Ukraine. So this is a highly supportive transport network to deliver everything necessary for the construction process, reconstruction process in Ukraine. And finally, again, we need peace, we need secure maritime transport, we need freedom of navigation. That's why Bulgaria and Romania, being the EU member states, we strongly contribute to this process. And the last one, we believe that the EU enlargement process and the integration of Ukraine is the best engine to drive the reforms and to provide the necessary favorable conditions for investment in Ukraine. Not to forget, Bulgaria is the only EU country or the EU member state with the biggest national minority in Ukraine.
Prime Minister of Czechia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, 26 June 2026, marks 1,583 days since Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine. 1,583 days of killing, 1,583 days of destruction, 1,583 days of fear, loss, and uncertainty. More than 4 terrible years during which parents have feared for their children, wives for their husbands, and children for their parents. And yet, despite all this suffering, the end still seems distant. There seems to be no will, no real effort to stop the killing, the destruction, the misery. It seems to me that after 4 years, many people across Europe appear to have become accustomed to this war. For millions watching a fair war was become something almost virtual. It appears on television screens, in social media feeds, in daily headlines and political debates. It is discussed through statistics, maps, military analysis, and online comments. Many of today's political leaders know war only through history books, documentaries, and strategic studies. When war becomes an abstraction, it becomes easier to talk about. It becomes easier to discuss military scenarios than human suffering, easier to debate weapons systems than broken families, and easier to speak about the victory than about the thousands of funerals taking place every month. But the war is not virtual. War is terrifyingly real, and it is taking place even when we speak. Wars mean empty villages and destroyed cities. War means cemeteries growing larger every month. War means children growing up without fathers. War means young men who will never return home. It means more widows, more orphans, more disembled veterans, and more hatred that will be inherited by future generations. Ukraine has already paid a terrible price. Entire communities have been displaced. Millions have fled their homes. Birth rates have collapsed. Families have been separated across borders. We are witnessing not only the destruction of infrastructure, but also the weakening of very human foundations upon which every nation depends. Yet too often, the public debate in Europe remains dominated by the single message: more weapons, more escalation, more confrontation, more war. Ladies and gentlemen, I sometimes wonder whether Europe is beginning to forget the lesson that we shaped it. The greatest achievement of the post-war Europe was not military power. It was the transformation of the continent, scarred by centuries of conflict, into the most successful peace project in modern history. Europe was built on the simple but profound idea that cooperation is stronger than confrontation, that dialogue is more productive than hatred, and thus lasting prosperity is possible without lasting peace. We should not forget this heritage. We should not abandon it. We should build upon it, now more than ever. Of course, every sovereign nation has the right to defend itself. Europe must protect its security and respond to threats with determination and responsibility. But the true challenge we face today is how to end this terrible war, how to create conditions in which diplomacy can once again become possible, how to open the path toward a just, stable, and sustainable peace. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of this conference is the recovery of Ukraine. It is an important and noble goal. Ukraine will need new roads, bridges, schools, and hospitals. Entire towns and communities will have to be rebuilt. Homes will need to be restored, businesses revived, and public services strengthened. This effort will require enormous resources, determination, and international cooperation. However, before we speak about reconstruction, we must speak about the essential precondition for reconstruction. Before we discuss investment, development plans, and recovery funds, we must ask ourselves a simple question: how can a country truly recover while war continues? The reality is that recovery cannot begin with concrete, steel, or financial packages. No bridge can be rebuilt while missiles and drones continue to fall. No investor will commit for the long term while uncertainty and violence persist. No family can fully rebuild its life while living in fear for the safety of its children. Reconstruction is not only about the repairing buildings, it is about restoring normal life, confidence, and hope. It is about giving people a reason to return home, to raise families, to start businesses, and to believe in the future again. And that can only happen when peace returns. Peace is not passivity. Peace is not resignation. Peace is not the abandonment of principle or justice. Peace is the determination to stop the killing, reduce human suffering, and create the conditions for a stable future. Europe once found the wisdom and courage to emerge from the ashes of war and build a continent founded on cooperation and reconciliation. The same wisdom we need today, because only peace can secure Ukraine's future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The floor goes to Kristen Michal, Prime Minister of Estonia.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin with a quote. We are here, we are in Kiev. We are defending our independence and our country, and that's how it will be. These were the words of President Zelensky in the first days of Russia's full-scale invasion. And as already said, today marks the 1,583rd day of this war. Russia wanted Ukraine to collapse within 3 days. Ukraine did not collapse. Russia wanted Europe to be divided, and Europe is more united than before. Russia wanted to decide Ukraine's future, and Ukraine decides its own future. That is why our work today matters. Security and reconstruction are not separate. Militarily, politically, and economically, because Ukraine's success matters to all of Europe. Estonia's total support to Ukraine has reached over 3% of our GDP, one of the highest levels of support in the world. This is a deliberate choice, and we remain committed to it. Supporting Ukraine is not a charity, it is a security investment. Every euro spent helping Ukraine today reduces the risks and costs Europe would otherwise face tomorrow. At the same time, we know that support means more than weapons. Ukraine needs two things at the same time: the means to defend itself and the means to build its future. The scale of reconstruction effort is enormous, and no country can carry this burden alone. No single institution can finance it alone. What Ukraine needs is a long-term partnership between governments, international financial institutions, businesses, and civil society. And we understand it well. We restored our independence 35 years ago and began rebuilding our state after decades of Soviet occupation. That is why we already have started sharing our experience with Ukraine. Together, we have built kindergartens, hospitals, social housing, and public services, and these are not future plans. People use them every day. This is what reconstruction means in practice. Ukraine's path to European Union is also part of reconstruction. Recovery, reform, and European integration move forward together. Dear colleagues, the most important message today is that we are not rebuilding Ukraine for some distant future. We are helping Ukraine build its future now. Every completed project strengthens Ukraine. Every investment increases confidence. Every success sends a clear message to Russia: attempt to break Ukraine has failed. And let me conclude with a commitment. In 2027, Estonia, together with our Ukrainian friends and in close cooperation with the Nordic Baltic 8, will host the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Tallinn. We look forward to welcoming governments, businesses, international organizations, and civil society from across Europe and around the world. Tallinn 2027 should not be about new promises. It should be about results, projects delivered, investments made, communities rebuilt. It should build the work of previous recovery conferences and carry forward the momentum that Gdansk will create. Estonia will continue to support Ukraine's victory. Estonia will continue to support Ukraine's recovery, and Estonia will continue to support Ukraine's path to European Union and NATO. Because a stronger Europe means a safer Europe. Stronger Ukraine means safer Europe. Thank you, and see you in Tallinn of 2027.
Dziękujemy.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to Petteri Orpo, the Prime Minister of Finland.
Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine has defended its right to peace and sovereignty for more than 4 years. And I thank Poland and Ukraine for hosting this important conference. Today's conference shows the strong commitment of all partners to Ukraine. Our support must continue for the long term, economically, militarily, and politically. Finland's support remains unwavering. Over the past winter, we have responded to urgent humanitarian needs caused by Russia's attacks on civilian infrastructure, and we are already looking ahead to next winter. Our development cooperation, ongoing since 2014, enables changes for a better future in Ukraine's key sectors. Ukraine has become, by far, Finland's most significant partner in development cooperation. Our defense support also remains strong. We have delivered 33 material assistance packages to Ukraine. And today, I'm proud to announce that my government has decided to contribute an additional 40 million euros to Pearl initiative. Finland is committed to supporting a sustainable and prosperous
furniture that makes space for you.
Cluster. Finland is also committed to strengthening the resilience of Ukrainian society. The Civil Protection Shelter Coalition, co-led by Ukraine and Finland, has already grown to 16 members. The coalition pools tens of millions in support. It brings together partners to strengthen Ukraine's national shelter strategy and delivers concrete shelters that protect civilians and save lives. And all countries here, you are more than welcome to the Shelter Coalition. Another example is the role of national export credit agencies. They support investment in Ukraine through EU instruments. Finland has actively promoted this approach. Involving national actors is essential for faster reconstruction. I welcome the rapid progress in this work. Dear friends, the future of Europe and European security is being shaped in Ukraine. Ukraine's successful recovery is a long-term investment. It benefits us all and reaches far beyond Ukraine. Let's continue this good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Andris Kublis, the Prime Minister of Latvia.
Well, this podium is too small. We need to change the standards. Same as we need to change the standards in defense. Dzień dobry Państwu. And
hello, ladies and gentlemen.
And dear Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko, and dear leaders, friends of Ukraine, as well as excellencies and ladies and gentlemen. This is, as mentioned, day 1583. But that's not how Ukraine looks at it. It's Ukraine's 4,482nd day. That's already 12 years of ongoing war activity and Russia aggression towards Ukraine. And dear Donald and Polish friends, thank you for hosting the 5th Ukraine Recovery Conference. We usually are healthy rivals as countries. But I think when it comes to supporting Ukraine and for our eastern flank defense, we are as united as ever. And we are the voice of Ukraine in EU because we know better than others. And Ukraine requires reconstruction on the go, not after the war, but now, while the war is going on. And Latvia continues to provide reconstruction in energy, in military support to Ukraine, totaling 1.13 billion already since 2022. We are third after Denmark, Estonia, and Baltics are right after and on the top, with Norway and Finland, because we know it is over 1,000 euros per capita what we support. Others should step in, because we've been way too slow and way too hesitant, as you mentioned, to support Ukraine. We're just doing it step by step. No, Ukraine needs it now. Now is the momentum. We see now is the momentum. We should push this support in order to change the war trajectory. That's the only way. The Latvian government and private sector and non-governmental organizations all support Ukraine. Just one example. I think Latvian people support even more than what I'm saying from the government side, because up to today, 3,600 vehicles have been sent to Ukraine to support Ukrainians by just 3 people, by 3 activists. That's just one example from many. That's 2 vehicles per day. We're small, but we're big-hearted because we know. And I welcome that 4 Latvian companies are represented here in military support, demining, in energy, housing, and digital sector. All the sectors which are required now in Ukraine as much as possible. And Latvia recovery focuses continue to be on the Ukrainian region on Chernihiv. And since 2022, Latvia has restored 3 medical facilities, 5 educational institutions, established 3 support centers for women, created premises for Chernihiv Regional Human Rights Protection Center, and provided housing. Latvia continues to support Ukraine in energy sector, and Latvia already now donated the thermal power plant equipment, which is so vitally necessary for the coming winter for Kharkiv region. We are ready to support even more with the thermal electric station equipment, which we have. And thanks to also Germany who found also resources in order to help us to for the logistics to manage that in time before the winter comes, because we know how difficult it could be next winter. And for the third year, our military support to Ukraine is 0.25%. Actually, it's 0.3% of our GDP annually. But Ukraine is also ready to support us, and that's an area we should cooperate much more. 2 weeks ago, during the North-Baltic Prime Minister meeting in Estonia, in Tallinn, President Zelensky and I signed the drone agreement, which is more than drone agreement. This is an umbrella over our skies to keep us safe from the drones. And there's no other country in the world who knows how to utilize most efficiently the military equipment in order to fight the drones. Because Latvia already has had 11 drone incidents and 36 airspace violations. Thus, we need the expertise from Ukraine, but we also need to integrate that with NATO policies. And not just Latvia, but all Eastern flank countries have to be aligned together in order to have no weak link. But Latvia is also investing in the drone industry and capabilities. And last week was a good example of that. Anti-drone company product of Origin Robotics signed a crucial tender, won a tender and signed a crucial deal with France, and who's already supplying to Belgium and Ukraine. So we have this cooperation, and we want to continue in the military industry together. In addition, Latvia can offer a very unique opportunity. We have one of the biggest in Eastern flank military ranges, where we can provide even electromagnetic testing grounds, which is so vitally needed for the military industry. And to conclude, as Ukraine is increasingly successful on the battlefield, it continues to contribute to Euro-Atlantic security. And we need to continue implementing the peace through strengths approach, leading us to joint and lasting peace in Ukraine. And we should learn from Ukraine. And every conference should end with a concrete action, with a concrete decision. So I really urge everyone here not to focus on the talking, but to focus on actually decisions made. And I remind, at the end, Russia has to pay for the recovery of Ukraine, not just the European society. Russia's money has to be used for that. And let's not forget, only strong economy means strong defense. So the economic ties are vitally important. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you. I will now give the floor to Alexandru Montanu, the Prime Minister.
I agree with Andres. We need the biggest thing here. Шановні друзі, dear Donald, dear Yulia, thank you for organizing this conference today. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to me to participate in the Ukraine Recovery Conference and to join partners from across Europe and beyond, and discussing how we can support Ukraine's recovery and future. As many historical parallels have been drawn today, let me remind you another historical event which happened exactly 63 years ago, when John Fitzgerald Kennedy, in divided then Berlin, famously stated, "Ich bin ein Berliner." I am a Berliner, which was a statement of solidarity and resilience. I am not JFK by a variety of reasons, but I worked in Ukraine for more than 20 years. My kids grew and matured in Ukraine. I made lifelong friendships in Ukraine, and some of them are in this room. And my friends are fighting for Ukraine and for all of us as we speak. So with all responsibility, I can say, ich bin a Kievanin. I am from Kiev. And people of Moldova, the country which is a close neighbor and close ally of Ukraine, they stand with Ukraine. For more than 4 years, Ukrainians have defended their homes, their communities, and their country under the most difficult circumstances. They have also demonstrated remarkable determination to continue reforming, rebuilding, and looking towards the future. Their courage and perseverance have inspired people across Europe, including in the Republic of Moldova. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine's recovery is actually already underway. Even as Ukrainians continue to defend their country, communities are rebuilding schools, hospitals, energy infrastructure, and businesses. Our responsibility is to ensure that these recovery efforts keep pace with Ukraine's resilience, and I'm happy to report that project discussed between our presidents and the one we discussed with Prime Minister Sviridенko, a bridge across Dniester, which will shorten the way between our two capitals, is actually launched this week. So this is our concrete response to the challenges. And this is why recovery requires long-term vision and coordinated action. It requires investment in infrastructure, energy, connectivity, and economic development. It requires reliable partnerships and a strong regional dimension. Effective, timely, and targeted support coupled with predictable and reliable assistance. All that will be essential to achieving this goal. These ambitious reconstruction efforts require advanced planning and implementation of numerous national and regional initiatives, particularly in the fields of infrastructure, transport, and energy, cross-border infrastructure, transport links, and energy networks. We stand ready to further develop our infrastructure and enhance our role in logistics and supporting Ukraine reconstruction. In this regard, the Republic of Moldova is already advancing several cross-border transport, road, and railway projects developing through bilateral and multilateral cooperation, including within the framework of our Odessa Triangle initiative. Projects aimed at building and modernizing bridges, highways, and railway lines will increase cross-border capacity, facilitate trade and transport, and contribute directly to Ukraine's recovery. For Ukraine, resilient and diversified transport routes are essential for economic recovery and long-term growth. Moldova is committed to helping provide those connections. Another important dimension of Ukraine's reconstruction is the resilient energy sector, which Prime Minister of Bulgaria already mentioned today. The Republic of Moldova continues to implement reforms aimed at integrating into EU natural gas and electricity markets, and we are involved in so-called vertical gas corridor, as well as different bilateral projects, including Belts, Dnistrovsk, hydroelectric power plant initiative. At the same time, we and the Moldovan government investing in the expansion of renewable energy production, which can further contribute to the diversification of energy resources to Ukraine. We planned a trilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Sviridенko, with my counterpart in Romania, and will certainly organize it in the beautiful city of Chernivtsi, where famously, historically, the mayor of Chernivtsi was speaking 5 languages. I would like to thank you all for supporting Ukraine, because by supporting Ukraine, we support Europe and the entire region, including Moldova. The reconstruction of Ukraine is not only about rebuilding cities, infrastructure, and economies. It's also about rebuilding confidence in a future founded on freedom, democracy, and European values. It's about creating opportunities for people to return, invest, build businesses, build their families. It's a safety and dignity. Ukraine's recovery will require sustained commitment, strategic vision, international solidarity. The Republic of Moldova will continue to stand with Ukraine, just as we have done since the first day of this barbaric invasion. We'll continue contributing through practical cooperation, stronger connectivity, enhanced energy security, and closer regional partnerships. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraine.